Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Adrian Hong and I'm an orthopedic surgeon in Vancouver, Canada. Congratulations on being selected for that big presentation. But with all of our meetings and conferences going virtual, you have to be capable of giving a great online presentation. So just like an orthopedic examination, I'm going to give you my tips and tricks through a look, feel, and move format on how to give an effective, engaging, and ultimately successful virtual presentation. So let's get started. Step 1, look. These are the bare minimums you'll need to give an engaging Zoom virtual presentation. As you can see, like most of us, I've turned on my computer, launched the Zoom application, and have not given any thought to my background or environment, my camera positioning or settings, or my audio quality. This is probably good enough for morning rounds, but definitely does not make the cut if you're trying to give a professional and engaging presentation. The first thing I'm going to talk about is audio quality. As you can probably hear, I'm using my computer's internal microphone, and it comes off as very tinny and echoey. And there's a very simple fix for this, which is to plug in a microphone. I'm going to plug in an external microphone, and you should be able to tell the differences in audio quality immediately. So this is before, and this is after plugging in a microphone. Pretty stark contrast, isn't it? You can tell my voice is much less tinny and hollow, and there's more depth to the sound quality. So that's an immediate improvement in our virtual presentation. The only thing left now to do is to get rid of that echo, and that brings us to our second point, which is background and location. As you can see, I've changed locations to somewhere a little more comfortable and definitely more private. I don't want to be interrupted during my presentation, and this is a space that I know I can have for myself for the next little while. You can choose to sit or stand, but as long as you're comfortable, it doesn't really matter. The next question becomes what device to use. If you're giving the presentation, then odds are you'll probably have to be forced to use either a desktop or a laptop. This way you can run your PowerPoint, and actually it's probably the most versatile in terms of all the things we will cover today. Currently I'm using my MacBook Pro laptop and using the built-in camera and the external microphone that we talked about. Camera positioning is also one of the most important aspects of a successful virtual presentation. As we talked about, most people just plop their computer onto a desk and we end up having a very unflattering view of the presenter. We're looking upwards at them and right into their nostrils. Nobody wants that. So a couple of simple fixes are to position the laptop up onto a box to a height where it's a more flattering view, or you can change the height of your seat to achieve the same outcome. What I've simply done here is put my laptop onto a box that's elevated it, giving a better view in line with my line of sight. So again, we're not getting that ugly down-up view of my nostrils. There's a couple other easy tricks we can do that are built directly into Zoom itself. These are with respect to our video quality in terms of how high of a quality we're streaming, as well as our appearance. I'll show you these now. If we select the Zoom toolbar and go down to Preferences and select that, the Settings menu will pop up. And once we're under the Settings menu, make sure you click on Video, which we have already selected, and the video settings will be available to you. Make sure you click the box that says Enable HD, and this will allow you to stream high definition HD video. If you want to, you can even Facetune yourself by clicking Touch Up My Appearance, and in the big screen, this is what this will look like. So as you can see, I Facetune myself and I look beautiful. And then there's lighting. Lighting is critically important to make yourself look as professional as possible. So as you can see, we're in a pretty dark and drab environment right now, even though I'm sitting beside a window with some natural light coming through. Here's what happens when I use some studio lights. I go from this to this, much improved. One very important lighting tip to remember is to make sure the light is coming directly from the front or at least from the sides. Avoid any kind of backlighting because that wreaks havoc, especially with Zoom videos. This is what happens. By making just small changes to our background, our audio quality, our video quality, and our lighting, we've gone from this. I'm going to plug in an external microphone and you should be able to tell the differences in audio to what we have now. Next in our look, feel, move workup of how to give a successful and engaging virtual presentation is feel. Here we'll talk about how to keep your audience more engaged. We've already talked about choosing your space, and now we're going to talk about setting the atmosphere. This will go a long way to projecting to your virtual audience the kind of environment that you want to project. As you can see, I chose a background of an operating room. This is actually just a backdrop that I bought online. Now, if you're giving a different presentation, you can create virtual backgrounds, which I'll show you how to do now. In your Zoom application, navigate again to Preferences. The settings menu will pop up, and this time select Virtual Background, and the virtual background options will pop up. You can select everything from none, which is currently selected because I have my paper background, to any of the preset virtual backgrounds. You can also create your own background by selecting the plus button and adding an image or video. I've already done this by creating my own backgrounds, such as this one. This is a background of my homepage, www.scrubbedout.com. As you can see right now, it looks backwards, but that's because it's currently mirrored. In real life, it will look correct and will look something like this. If you don't like the mirrored look, you can simply change it again in your preferences, again by going to your Zoom toolbar, selecting Preferences, selecting Video, and unselecting Mirror My Video. For this specific video, I've actually created a custom background as I'm doing this in conjunction with the Canadian Orthopedic Association. The nice thing here is that throughout your presentation, you can get in a little bit of subliminal advertising. So I have the crest for the Canadian Orthopedic Association, the Canadian Orthopedic Research Society, my own crest for Scrubbedout, my website, www.scrubbedout.com, as well as my professional practice group, which is the West Coast Upper Extremity Surgery Team, or WEST. Another really important way to set the atmosphere and the environment of your virtual presentation is by what you wear. During my presentations, I like to wear a suit and a tie. Try to wear something that has a little bit of contrast compared to your background, and generally speaking, brighter colors work well for this. In general, try to avoid things like tank tops. Because we're only getting this top torso view, it tends to make people look a little bit topless. Also, try to avoid neutral tones. They tend to wash you out and it does not give very good contrast depending on what your background is. But again, we're trying to make you stand out and create some interest for your virtual presentation. Whatever you choose to wear, please wear pants. We don't want to see any of this.
Very cool. We love it, Will.
The next way of keeping audiences engaged is to make them feel engaged. There's been all these studies showing that on Zoom and virtual applications, people have a hard time picking up the regular social cues they'd be able to detect in real life. So we have to go back to the basics, such as body positioning and eye contact. Both of these boil down to knowing where your camera is. So for example, I'm using a MacBook Pro laptop right now, and my camera is on the top bar of my screen. So right there. By knowing this, I know that there's a little bit of elevation from the camera down to my eyes. And so that means if I'm constantly staring down at my slides all the time, I am not making any eye contact with my virtual audience. Similarly, body positioning also becomes very important. I've transitioned virtually to becoming a two-dimensional image. This is inherently more boring. This means that I have to do my best to show the audience that I'm engaged by having my body turned towards them. If my camera is down to the side, I have to know that so that I can consciously turn my body so it gets a face-on shot of my profile during the presentation. Similarly, this goes back to my recommendation of not using dual screens. If I have a second screen over to one side, I'm constantly going to have my body turned and my eyes focused away from the audience. This can definitely cause the audience to be disengaged. So whether you're using your internal camera or an external webcam, make sure you know where it is and make sure you position it correctly. The final aspect of our look, feel, move workup of how to give a successful and engaging virtual presentation is moves. So in this case, it's the tips, tricks, and special moves that we can use to keep our audience virtually engaged. The first move is using eye contact to your advantage. We already talked about knowing where your camera is, and now that you do, we can use it as a tool. For example, saying, "This is the most important point," has much less effect than saying, "This is the most important point." So by knowing where your camera is, you can use eye contact to your advantage to highlight important points and to keep the audience engaged. Another important point is to know what to do with your hands.
I'm not sure what to do with my hands.
Just like in real life, hand gestures add a lot to presentations and actively keep the audience engaged. However, in a virtual environment, you live in a two-dimensional box. Before you go live, I suggest that you test out the limits of your virtual box and so you can know where your hand gestures can go. And finally, don't forget to take care of all those little housekeeping issues at the beginning so that you don't get any interruptions during your presentation. For example, when everyone logs on, make sure that they're muted. If they aren't, you can mute everybody. To do this, simply go down to your participants list, select that, and from here you can hit select mute all. Also remember to have people turn off their cell phones and remember to turn off your own cell phone. Similarly, if you have your messaging app linked to your computer, make sure you turn that off as well because that will pop up in the middle of your presentation. That's my look, feel, and move workup on how to create a successful and engaging virtual presentation. If you have any tips you want to share, make sure you write them down in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel where you can see my other videos I've also produced. They're also available on my website at www.scrubbedout.com. The link is again down in the comments. Thanks for watching and good luck on your presentation.